Hey guys, this is Hard Time Sean Ben, and today we wanted to specifically target our field crafting tools. So, something that I do with any axe that I purchase. Normally, when you purchase it from, a Home Depot or a Lowe's or any of those just general retailers, your axe is going to be, mass produced. So, there's a few things that you can do to make it better suited for field work that you would normally see 100 years ago, whatever, when guys actually use their tools every day. But when I first bought this tomahawk, I have a CRKT Woods Shogun. When I bought it, it was covered in this lacquer, this really slippery, really shiny material, and basically that's used by these big retailers to make it prettier for the consumer. Makes it shiny, makes the wood look clean, makes it pop, but it's not really suited for field use. Reason being that it is really slippery in your hand. So if you're going to use it, your hand could slip. In my experience, I've found it makes it really easy to get blisters on your hands when using the tools. So the first thing that I did was, using the sharpest knife I had available, which was just a disposable razor, I went down the length of the handle and I stripped off that entire lacquer, and I basically stripped it until I couldn't see the shiny anymore. I did that all the way around the handle. I did that on the top and the bottom, where all the nutrients that when you oil the handle will be soaked into it, and I did that its entirety. Then I went over with sandpaper. I sanded the entire handle till it was uniform. At that point, I wiped down the entire handle with a damp rag to get any residual sawdust off of the handle. I allowed it to dry, and then I scorched the handle. So way back when, you could do this by using coals or a fire. Some guys use hand lighter, Zippo lighter. I used a blowtorch just to go a little bit quicker, make sure that everything was uniform. Went over, and the idea behind scorching, your wood handles is it's kind of threefold. So scorching it builds up a layer of carbon, and that layer of carbon makes your handle more resistant to fire, makes it fire retardant, makes it resistant to insects, and it makes it water repellent. So after doing uniform scorching over the entire handle, I sanded it again. I did it with, I think, 120 grit, then 150 grit, until everything was smooth. I didn't feel any snags in the wood or anything. Then I went over it again with a damp rag to get rid of any sawdust, get rid of any carbon. And then I oiled it. So I used boiled linseed oil, and this is basically a sealant on top of the carbon. Mm-hmm. And this dries incredibly fast. But something you need to look out for is if you utilize a rag to oil your handle, as the stuff dries, it can get very hot. So that could be a fire hazard. After I completely, scorched and cleaned and sealed the handle, at that point I just used a roll of Coban, and I tightly wound where my hands are going to be most often, where I'm going to have my most, my high handle places, just to add as a little bit of extra friction, a little bit of extra purchase on the handle. And then I focused on the head of the tomahawk. So when I first got the head of the tomahawk, it comes with a normal factory grind. So I actually went down with my whetstone, and I essentially doubled the length of the cutting edge. And basically what this does, instead of having the blade tapered immediately, this lengthens out that cutting edge. So it makes it so that it can glide into the wood a little easier, makes so it can cut in a little bit deeper. And also I don't really know how to explain this, but it makes it easier for me in the field to rehone, resharpen the blade if I need to. I'm not fighting a factory, a machined angle. I'm working, with a muscle memory that I've already developed on this, on this blade.
I bet the thing goes through wood like a hot knife through butter.
It's stupid. I love it so much.
Can you shave with that thing?
Actually, no, not yet. I can almost give myself stitches though. We tried that the other day. It just turned out to be Dermabond. But after you get it nice and sharp, then I rail can everything. So I rail can this because it comes off with a really good finish from the factory, but it's metallic, shiny silver, which doesn't really yield itself to what I'm trying to do here. So I painted the entire head of the tomahawk, and it's going to wear down eventually over time, and I'll have to redo it. But that's the nature and that's the purpose of tools. They're not perfect. Yep. They require upkeep and they require your attention, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And the last thing I did was I oiled the blade. Any metal piece of equipment that you have needs to be oiled. The oil is protecting the metal from water, from air, protects it against rust. It increases the lifetime of your tool. Mm-hmm. And then I think I mentioned in our earlier Fieldcraft episode, but I store the tomahawk broken down just so I don't have the propensity to snag on anything, or it's just easier to store and to use if needed. If I'm going to use it, I'm going to be in a static position for a while, so I don't mind doffing my equipment, then grabbing that and taking that out.
Right. And that's kind of the same thing that I've done with my axe. Is I haven't actually stripped down the handle yet, but after listening to you talk about doing that and all the benefits of it, I'm definitely going to do that. And I really need to go back over the head of the axe. I bought the thing stock from freaking Tractor Supply Company, so I've done almost nothing to it except for get a different head cover for it. That's about it. But yeah, I store that thing in. It's basically strapped to the side of my ruck. So I mean, when am I going to use that? That's not something I need to get to right off the bat. So that's just a storage issue. But I haven't even solved what I'm going to do with
it. Does make it less moving parts, though.
Right.
There's pros and cons to everything. So the nature of my kit, I like to have everything a little more compact, a little bit more streamlined. But it requires more time in order to get everything out, put everything together, and do what you gotta do. So there's always trade-offs. Right. But the nice part about that tool you said you bought stock is it's never too late to work on your kit. You can always be developing your kit. Something that I think the both of us bought. I think it was like off Amazon. It's like $12 or $13. It was just a dual-sided whetstone.
Yep.
Had a coarse and a fine side.
Yep.
And that's something you'll never wear that down to nothing. You'll never use it enough. So keeping that, and then I have honing oil. I'm sure you could use CLP or other type of lubricant to to assist in your endeavor. But these are pieces of equipment that you can always be working on. You always should be working on. Something that is real danger with using these tools is if you have a dull blade.
Yes.
You need to make sure that that all of your blades are sharp, or you're just begging for an injury.
Right.
You're begging for it to catch, and you're going to overcompensate, and you're not going to have a great day.
I mean, plus, like if you're swinging at some wood with a dull axe, it's going to take you a lot longer to accomplish whatever you're trying to do, be it to fell a tree, to chop it up into firewood, create shelter, whatever. And time is money. Time is life. Like, the less time that you spend making shelter, building a fire, is more time you can be spending doing other things, gathering food, building that fire, whatever.
Time. The three currencies: time, calories, and water. Right. If you don't, if you can make your job easier so you don't have to expend as much time or calories and, naturally water, then, that's kind of important to do.
It's 100% important to do.
And then the other two tools that, I'm going to really touch on are my e-tool and my folding saw. Mm-hmm. So as far as the e-tool goes, I haven't found a good, replacement for that yet. So I'm working with what I've got. But if anyone, remembers using an e-tool or has ever used an e-tool, you know that the handle is garbage.
Oh, God.
So something I did to kind of, work on not getting as many blisters while I'm using that is I just covered all of my, actual grabbing points with Coban, just because it's a cheap fabric type, wrapping that is adhesive to itself. So it's not going to come undone. You don't have to tie it. It's going to be there, and it's cheap. You can go to Walmart, H-E-B, shop you go to, and it'll be there. So you can, and that's another thing we were trying to touch on, is you can repurpose a lot of stuff that you already have.
Yeah.
Or that you can scavenge or find, right? But all of my grabbing angles I, covered with Coban, and then I, oiled problem areas. So all the threads, just to help in some way.
Yeah. You gotta do what you gotta do. That's the great thing about a lot of the fieldcraft that we do also is just it's repurposing, it's adaptation to whatever limitations you have, making something work for you, making something suit the purpose that you're going for is the great thing about what we do.
Well, and you know what? It actually makes me think of our first episode. One of your talking points was you want to talk about how, vets, guys that are just getting out, can repurpose their kit, right? Can reuse all their stuff. So I got a lot of my equipment from surplus stores.
Yeah.
If you actually go in the field and actually use this stuff, you'll figure out what you need and what you're lacking, and you have a better idea of what you can use instead of getting issued a couple ruckfuls of stuff and not using half of it.
90% of the stuff that we use now is stuff that we were never allowed to use while we were in. Boonie caps, just for like a quick example, we were never allowed to wear those things ever, even while deployed.
Not even once. I was so sad. Well, what makes me think of too, we're talking about fieldcraft, right? Yeah. Name one time you were allowed to have a fire?
Never.
If it wasn't the CO's jet boil. Not
never.
Once. Not a lot of the stuff, transferred.
Right.
But the last thing I had was just a folding saw. So a lot of these, saws that you can pick up from, like the Forest Service user, lumberjacks use logging, they're high contrast colors, the handles. So like neon orange, neon green, just so that if guys drop them in the field, while they're in use, they can retrieve them, instead of having, folding saws laying around in the forest. So something I do is just, do a quick rail can job, just cut off that, high contrast reflective color. And then as far as the saw blade goes itself, I have a little file that I keep at home so that when I come back from the field, I can rehone the, the actual saw blade as needed.
Yeah, and those types of saws are great too, especially if you want to be able to find something or be seen. If you're in a situation where you don't, like you do, I wholly recommend that you paint those things, or at the very least cover them. Mm-hmm. Wrap them in tape, paint them, spray paint them, whatever. Do not just leave them
we're talking about
bright orange.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be while you're in use.
Yeah.
Right. So, if you have something strapped to the side of your ruck or your vest or whatever, if you have a high contrast color, or if you have, metal that hasn't been painted over, light can travel an incredible distance. So the glint off of, an axe head, if it's poking out from the side of a pouch or the side of your kit, that is so easy to catch. Right. So we're just trying to negate anything like that that'll give you away before you're even able to react.
Right.
I mean, that's all we had for you guys. So, this is a short episode, but we're getting more into fieldcraft now, and we want to kind of give our 2 cents on what we do to prepare for the field with all of our equipment.
This has been Hard Times, Strong Men. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. Bye, everybody.